I got into my husband's car and found a tube of personal lubricant in the glove compartment. I didn't say a word. I just secretly replaced it with industrial superglue. And what happened next forced our neighbors to make an emergency call to the fire department. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it's traveled. I sat at the kitchen table in our modest home, the silence around me thick as morning fog that refused to lift. The old clock on the wall, a wedding gift from my late mother 40 years ago, ticked with a relentless, accusatory rhythm. Each beat felt like a painful reminder of what I was beginning to suspect was a beautiful, meticulously crafted lie that had become the foundation of my entire existence. My husband Marcus had just returned from what he claimed was another routine business dinner. But tonight felt different in ways I couldn't quite articulate. He looked not merely exhausted from a long day at the office, but haunted, as if he carried the weight of secrets too heavy for any one person to bear. His face had become a roadmap of fatigue and guilt over the past several months, with deep lines etched around his eyes and mouth that seemed to have appeared overnight. He tossed his expensive jacket onto our worn sofa with a weariness that felt performative, loosened his silk tie as if it were a noose he was desperate to escape, and collapsed onto our bed without even bothering to wash the day away. The familiar springs groaned under his weight, a sound that had once been comforting in its predictability but now felt ominous. The faint scent of his expensive cologne hung in the air like a ghost from happier times, but tonight it was mixed with something foreign and unsettling, a sweet, distinctly floral perfume that felt like an invasion into our sacred space. This alien fragrance was a brazen confession from a life I was beginning to realize he was living without me. Within minutes, the gentle hum of his snoring filled our house, a sound that had once brought me comfort during my own sleepless nights. Now it felt like a mocking lullaby, the peaceful sleep of someone whose conscience was either completely clear or completely dead. I rose from the table, moving with the quiet, practiced grace of a wife who had spent 4 decades learning to navigate around a sleeping husband's needs and moods. I began my nightly ritual of tidying up the mess he'd left scattered throughout our living room. His jacket, wallet, cell phone, laptop. Something caught my attention that made my heart skip a beat. The phone screen was still glowing with a soft blue light, displaying a new email notification that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy in our dimly lit home. Out of morbid curiosity that felt both completely wrong and absolutely necessary, I picked up his phone with trembling fingers. The message was devastatingly short, a mere handful of words that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of my entire existence. "You were incredible tonight, Dad." The words were followed by a red heart emoji, that universal symbol of love and affection that now pierced through my own heart like a cold, sharp blade dipped in poison. I felt the blood drain from my face as if someone had opened a valve. That. The word echoed in my mind like a scream in an empty cathedral. Who could possibly be calling my husband by such an intimate, familial term? And with such obvious affection and what appeared to be post-intimate gratitude? My thumb trembled uncontrollably as I swiped down, desperately searching for additional context, more clues, anything that might provide an innocent explanation for what I was seeing. But there was nothing else. Just a cryptic email address composed of meaningless numbers and letters that offered no answers, only spawned more terrifying questions. I glanced toward our bedroom and saw Marcus turn over in his sleep with another sputtering snore, his face serene and peaceful in the dim light filtering through our curtains. The stark contrast between his obvious tranquility and the emotional hurricane raging inside me was almost unbearable. My heart was pounding like a criminal's, frantic, guilty, terrified of being discovered investigating my own husband's potential betrayal. I quickly replaced the phone exactly where I'd found it, my hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped it twice. I continued my cleaning routine, but now my movements were mechanical and robotic, my mind spinning through possibilities I didn't want to consider. As I gathered his dirty clothes to take to our laundry room, I methodically checked each pocket, a habit I'd developed over decades of marriage to prevent important papers from being accidentally washed. In his pants pocket, my fingers found something that made my stomach drop like a stone into dark water. A folded piece of paper, crisp and obviously new. When I unfolded it with trembling hands, I discovered it was a receipt from Romano's, the most exclusive and expensive steakhouse in San Antonio, dated that very evening. He told me he was meeting partners in Dallas. The receipt showed a party of 2, expensive wine, a dinner that cost more than our weekly groceries. I tried remembering the last time Marcus took me somewhere like Romano's. Maybe 8 years ago when I opened my bakery, flickering candlelight, his proud smile toasting my success. Now that memory felt corrupted. With silent but iron determination, I took out my own phone and carefully photographed both the mysterious email and the damning restaurant receipt. Each click of the camera felt like I was documenting evidence in what might become a criminal case against my own marriage. I didn't want to believe what the evidence was suggesting. Every rational part of my mind was screaming for innocent explanations. But a woman's intuition, especially a wife's intuition that had been carefully calibrated over 40 years of marriage, is a deep, primal knowing that transcends logic, hope, and wishful thinking. Something was definitely happening in my husband's secret life, and I was going to discover exactly what it was, no matter how much the truth might ultimately destroy everything I held dear. My investigation couldn't stop with phone evidence. I needed to search deeper to uncover whatever other secrets Marcus might be hiding in plain sight. This led me to our attached garage, where his aging SUV sat like a potential treasure trove of incriminating evidence. The vehicle was still warm from his evening's mysterious activities, and the enclosed space was thick with the familiar smell of gasoline and motor oil, now mixed with that same alien floral perfume that had contaminated our bedroom. The scent was stronger here, more concentrated, as if whoever wore that perfume had spent considerable time in Marcus's car. I opened the driver's side door and turned on my phone's flashlight, casting harsh white light into every corner of the interior. I searched methodically like a detective processing a crime scene. The driver's seat area revealed nothing particularly suspicious, just some loose change scattered in the cup holder, an empty water bottle that had rolled under the seat, and a few receipts from gas stations that matched Marcus's normal travel patterns. But when I reached across to investigate the passenger side, my fingers brushed against something in the glove compartment that made my entire world shift on its axis. I pulled out a tube of personal lubricant, clearly used multiple times, with dried residue around the cap that caught my phone's light like damning evidence under a forensic lamp. I stood there in our dark garage, holding this object as if it were a loaded weapon pointed directly at my heart. The small plastic tube felt impossibly heavy in my trembling hands, weighted with implications that I couldn't ignore or rationalize away. The discovery hit me like a physical blow because Marcus and I hadn't been intimate in over 3 years. Not once. He had gradually but consistently rejected every attempt I'd made to rekindle physical closeness in our marriage. His explanations had always seemed reasonable, even considerate. He was tired from work stress, middle age had naturally decreased his libido, the medications he took for high blood pressure had unfortunate side effects. "We're not 25 anymore, Elena," he'd say gently. "Emotional companionship matters more than physical passion now." I'd accepted this as the natural evolution of our 40-year marriage, redirecting my energy into my bakery business. But holding this lubricant, one devastating question echoed. If Marcus had no desire for intimacy with his wife, what was this for? I replaced the tube exactly where I'd found it, then scrubbed my hands raw with napkins. Under the back seat I found more evidence. Perfume-soaked napkins. Not masculine cologne, not my signature rose fragrance I'd worn for 20 years, but something bold, youthful, almost vulgar in its intensity. A defiant announcement of infidelity in our family garage. I photographed everything methodically. The lubricant from multiple angles, the napkins, their positions. Each image felt like building a legal case for future divorce proceedings. Back inside with Marcus's phone, I felt the weight of accumulated evidence. I was almost certain of his affair, but needed undeniable proof. His text history showed only work conversations, dry exchanges about meetings and deadlines. His email was suspiciously clean, containing only that one devastating message. His sent folder, drafts, deleted items, all pristine. This meticulous digital housekeeping felt more damning than explicit love letters. Such careful cleanup suggested not just guilt, but a well-established pattern of deliberate deception requiring constant maintenance. The next morning arrived with deceptive normalcy, sunlight streaming through our windows, birds chirping outside. But I felt like I was living in a parallel universe where everything looked the same but nothing was. I'd barely slept, staring at our ceiling while Marcus snored peacefully beside me, apparently untroubled by guilt. I was already dressed when he stumbled into the kitchen, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot from what I now suspected wasn't just fatigue. Going through the motions, I prepared his usual breakfast: eggs over easy, wheat toast, black coffee. My hands moved automatically through our decades-old routine while my mind churned with unthinkable possibilities. Marcus grabbed his favorite mug, a Father's Day gift from our son, took a sip and barely finished half. "I've got another important client meeting today," he announced in that rehearsed morning voice. "Complex case. I'll be working late again. Don't wait up." I watched him deliver this performance with casual expertise, like someone who'd been perfecting these lies for months or years. No eye contact, no nervous tells, just practice deception. "Drive safely," I replied, forcing a smile while every fiber wanted to scream for truth. "Don't work too hard." He gave me his customary shoulder pat, now feeling more like dismissal than affection, and left to begin another day of elaborate lies. The moment the door closed, I knew I couldn't live in this limbo anymore. I needed professional verification of what my heart was telling me. I scrolled to Mrs. Anderson's contact, a longtime friend who'd helped me navigate early bakery challenges. Years ago, she'd mentioned knowing a private investigator when I suspected employee theft. "If you ever need this kind of help," she'd said confidentially, "Thomas Mitchell is very professional, very discreet." I'd filed it away as information I'd hopefully never need. Hiring someone to spy on family seemed foreign, distasteful, something that happened to other people. But life forces us into situations we never imagined. My hands trembled as I dialed. Each ring felt like a drumbeat announcing the potential end of my marriage. "Mrs. Anderson? It's Elena. I need that private investigator you mentioned, Thomas Mitchell." A pause filled with unspoken understanding. "Oh, Elena, honey," she said, voice shifting to concern. "What's happening?" I couldn't articulate my suspicions. Speaking them would make them real in a way keeping them locked inside didn't. "I just need to learn the truth about something important," I whispered. Mrs. Anderson, with characteristic wisdom, didn't push for details. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll text you his information. And Elena, you don't have to face this alone." Within 30 minutes, Thomas Mitchell's message felt like a lifeline. "Mrs. Roberts, Mrs. Anderson explained you might need investigative services. Available to meet at Café Luna downtown at noon today? Don't worry, I'll help you find the answers you're looking for." At noon, I entered Café Luna, a small establishment on a quiet downtown side street. I chose a secluded corner table where shadows would hide what felt like the most shameful activity of my life: hiring someone to spy on my husband. Thomas Mitchell arrived precisely on time, middle-aged, compact build, simple blue shirt and dark slacks. Professional. But his eyes held philosophical depth, worldly wisdom, as if he'd witnessed every variation of human betrayal. I handed him a flash drive containing my compiled evidence: photographs of the email, restaurant receipt, lubricant tube, perfume-soaked napkins. 40 years of marriage reduced to digital files in my palm. "This is everything," I said, voice shaking. "I believe my husband might be having an affair." The words felt like swallowing broken glass. Thomas reviewed each image methodically, making illegible notes in a leather notebook. "Mrs. Roberts," he said finally, balancing compassion with hard-earned wisdom, "based on this evidence, there are grounds for investigation. These patterns are consistent with extramarital activity." He leaned forward, voice gentle but serious. "Once we begin, there's no going back to ignorance. If your husband is having an affair, we'll find concrete proof. Are you emotionally prepared for whatever truth we uncover?" The question hung between us like a suspended sword. I met his experienced eyes, summoning strength I wasn't sure I possessed. "I need to know the truth. Living with uncertainty is destroying me from the inside. I'd rather face painful reality than continue existing in beautiful lies." Thomas nodded with understanding born from years of guiding people through life's most difficult decisions. "I'll begin surveillance this afternoon and provide regular updates. Maintain your normal routines, don't make your husband suspicious. Can you manage that?" I nodded, though pretending everything was normal felt like performing calculus while being set on fire. That evening, I sat in my bakery's back office after closing, mechanically reviewing invoices surrounded by familiar scents of yeast and vanilla. My phone vibrated with a message that would shatter my reality. Thomas Mitchell. My heart pounded as I opened his message with trembling fingers. The first image nearly stopped my heart. Marcus in his special occasion blue shirt, walking hand in hand with a woman toward Romano's restaurant. Their fingers intimately intertwined, body language speaking of established lovers, not business associates. I zoomed in and my world exploded. Isabella. My daughter-in-law. She wore a form-fitting black dress that accentuated curves I'd never seen at family gatherings, heavy makeup transforming her from the modest young woman I knew into someone sophisticated and seductive. Her hair cascaded in elegant waves instead of the practical ponytail from family visits. They looked like passionate lovers on a romantic date, bodies turned toward each other with shared secrets and intimacy that excluded the world. I sank into my chair, hand pressed against my chest to prevent my heart from shattering. Isabella, the woman I'd welcomed with open arms, taught our family flan recipe, loved like the daughter I never had. 4 years at family gatherings, she and Marcus had maintained carefully choreographed distance, rarely speaking, seeming uncomfortable when forced to interact. David had even joked about it. I think Isabella can't stand Dad. She acts like he's contagious. I'd attributed their behavior to generational differences or Isabella's shyness. Now I understood. Every awkward moment had been elaborate theater designed to deceive David and me. Thomas sent more photographs rapidly, each driving betrayal deeper. Isabella leaning toward Marcus, face animated with genuine laughter. Marcus raising his wine glass in a romantic toast. Candlelight creating golden warmth, making them look years younger and completely absorbed in each other. Marcus's expression showed intensity and adoration that had been absent from our marriage for a decade. I stared until my eyes burned, studying every detail desperately. In 40 years, including our honeymoon, David's birth, building our early life when love seemed capable of overcoming anything, I had never seen Marcus look at me with that combination of desire, tenderness, worship, and pure joy. That expression of complete devotion, that look of a man believing he was with the most fascinating woman in the world, had never been directed at me. Not once. Not ever. And now it was being lavished upon my daughter-in-law. At 2:17 a.m., another message from Thomas arrived. I put on headphones and pressed play with trembling hands. The video, shot from a distance but crystal clear, showed Isabella leaning close to Marcus's ear, whispering something that made him throw back his head in genuine laughter, the kind absent from our home for years. They moved with practiced intimacy, every gesture revealing familiarity that could only develop through months of secret relationship. I replayed it obsessively, each viewing revealing devastating details. Isabella's hand lingering possessively on Marcus's arm, his protective guidance through the restaurant, pure contentment on both their faces. But the most devastating evidence came the next day, an audio recording from their hotel parking lot. Isabella's voice, cold and calculating, nothing like her sweet family tone. Dad, you need to hurry up with those fake legal contracts. I want complete control of that entire bakery chain. I want that pathetic old witch out of the house and out of our lives permanently. Then Marcus, confident and conspiratorial. Don't worry about the paperwork, sweetheart. Elena doesn't suspect anything. Leave everything to me. She trusts me completely, probably too much for her own good. They weren't just having an affair. They were actively conspiring to steal my life's work. 40 years of 4 a.m. mornings preparing fresh bread, countless sleepless nights perfecting recipes, decades building relationships with suppliers and customers. My bakery wasn't just a business. It was tangible proof of my determination, creativity, independence. My sweat, tears, and dreams transformed into something real through pure persistence. Marcus had never contributed meaningfully. He'd offered generic spousal support but never worked behind the counter, never negotiated with suppliers, never stayed up preparing catering orders. The bakery was entirely my creation, my legacy, my financial independence. And now these conspirators, who'd contributed nothing, were planning to steal everything and discard me like garbage. I spent the next several days formulating a plan with the cold precision of a military strategist planning a campaign. Every detail had to be perfect. Every element carefully coordinated to ensure maximum impact and undeniable public exposure. I told Marcus I needed to travel to Nashville for a potentially major contract negotiation that could significantly expand my bakery business into new markets. I watched his eyes carefully when I delivered this news, and I was rewarded with a brief flash of relief and anticipation that confirmed my suspicions. He wanted me gone. He was already planning how to use my absence. That sounds like a wonderful opportunity, Elena, he said with practiced enthusiasm. Don't worry about anything here at home. I'll take care of everything while you're away. That night, I overheard him making a phone call from our living room, speaking in hushed tones he thought were private. Yes, come over tomorrow evening. We won't need to sneak around to hotels anymore. Elena will be out of town overnight. I heard Isabella's distinctive giggle from the other end of the line, followed by her excited response. Perfect, Dad. We'll finally have the whole house to ourselves. Using David's old college voice recorder, I set up surveillance equipment in our bedroom, positioning it to capture everything that would happen. I also prepared what I called my smoke trap, an ingenious device consisting of string attached to our kitchen stove's ignition system, connected to our window so I could activate it remotely. One pull of the string would ignite oil in a pan, creating thick black smoke that would immediately alarm our neighbors and trigger emergency calls to the fire department. On the morning of my supposed departure, I pretended to leave for the airport but instead hid at Mrs. Anderson's house across the street, positioning myself at her front window where I could observe everything happening at my own home. At exactly 10:15 a.m., a taxi pulled up and Isabella emerged wearing large dark sunglasses like a criminal trying to avoid identification. Marcus quickly ushered her inside our house, looking around nervously to ensure no neighbors were watching. Through the audio feed from my hidden recorder, I heard laughter, the clinking of glasses, and then the unmistakable sounds of intimate activity. Isabella's voice turned panicked. What the hell is happening? We're completely stuck. Marcus responded with growing alarm. Stop screaming. Let me figure this out. The industrial superglue I had substituted for their lubricant was working exactly as planned, trapping them in their most humiliating and compromising position. I activated my smoke trap remotely. Thick black smoke began billowing from our kitchen windows as neighbors rushed into their yards, shouting about fire and calling emergency services. Through my headphones, Isabella's voice became increasingly desperate while Marcus cursed and struggled futilely against their adhesive prison. Fire trucks screamed down our quiet residential street with sirens blaring, their red lights flashing like announcements of impending judgment. David jumped from the lead vehicle in his fire chief uniform, his young face tense with professional duty and personal concern for his family's safety. My heart broke watching my son prepare to discover the most devastating truth of his life, but there was no turning back from the path I had chosen. David led his team in breaking down our front door, the sound of splintering wood echoing through our neighborhood like gunshots. The bedroom erupted in chaos as they discovered Marcus and Isabella naked, stuck together, and unable to separate despite their obvious pain and panic. What is this? What's happening here? David's voice cracked with shock and disbelief as he processed the impossible scene before him. The humiliation spread immediately from David's fire crew to the gathering crowd of neighbors who had been drawn by the emergency vehicles. Mrs. Anderson recorded everything on her phone, the video destined to become neighborhood legend and social media infamy. Father-in-law and daughter-in-law caught in the act, someone shouted from the crowd. What an absolute disgrace. Poor Elena. Marcus and Isabella were loaded onto stretchers, their bodies still partially connected by industrial adhesive, wrapped in thin hospital sheets that provided minimal coverage for their shame. The crowd's murmurs followed them, 40 years of marriage destroyed. How could they do this to that sweet family? At the hospital, I played the role of shocked, concerned wife to perfection. When medical staff provided ointment tubes for treating their skin irritation, I secretly swapped them with tubes of mustard I had prepared for this exact moment. Minutes later, gut-wrenching screams echoed through the hospital corridors as the burning sensation added physical agony to their public humiliation. I entered their room carrying divorce papers and manila folders containing every piece of evidence Thomas had gathered. Looking Marcus directly in his eyes, those same eyes that had once promised to love and cherish me until death, I spoke with cold, final authority. 40 years of marriage end today. Sign these documents and disappear from my son's life and mine forever. Isabella collapsed into hysterical sobs, begging David for forgiveness. But my son looked at her with eyes that had turned to stone and walked away without speaking a single word. Several weeks after the scandal rocked our neighborhood, my bakery experienced unprecedented business. People called me strong, resilient, a woman who'd successfully defended her business against betrayal and theft.